What's up, everybody? We are back with another edition of the Ad Podcast. And today I have Justin Buzzi from Get Up and Go Kayaking here to talk to us a little bit about marketing in the experience world. I am coming off of 4 days of last week at the Arrival conference in San Diego, California. It was eye-opening, 4 days of spending time with the people in the industry that actually drive what matters in our vacations, which is heading out on the open road and going and trying out some unique new experiences when we get to whatever destination we're traveling at. So Justin and I did not get a connect at the show, but he was nice enough to hop on and talk a little bit to our audience about how you market on the experiential side of the travel industry. So Justin, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, for sure, man. So let's start off with just telling the audience a little bit about yourself and your business, Get Up and Go Kayaking. And I'll just preface real fast before I turn it over to you. What was really fascinating about attending Arrival is that I met so many experience operators that were either like SaaS sales guys or startup guys or influencers who all launched experience businesses, or a lot of people who kind of got out of like the corporate grind and the 9 to 5. So it seems to be a reoccurring theme. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your origin story and why you decided to get into this industry, if you wouldn't mind giving a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So it for me is a weird origin story, but it's also kind of fun. I actually used to be a rapper back in the day,
Let's go.
and yep. And so I did that for probably about 10 years. I really started making music when I was like 13 or 14 years old, and um, ended up doing that, through college and a little bit after college, and pretty much up until I started Get Up and Go Kayaking. In between there, though, I went to UCF, the University of Central Florida, graduated with my marketing degree, and went and worked at the Golf Channel.
Uh,
I'd worked at a couple golf courses, like in high school and then through college, and built some relationships of people that worked at the Golf Channel, and then ended up, leaning on those relationships to get a job there, kind of like a career job after graduating college. So I started out there as like a customer support person. I would help golf courses in whatever way they needed, specifically for Golf Now, where you book tee times online.
yeah, I remember that. I still use Golf Now. It's great
Yep.
for those last minute. I
The
mean
hot deal.
the inventory is not awesome, but it's good if you don't really care where you're gonna go.
Yeah. Yep. And so I started out there, and through the 2.5 years of being there, I had four different promotions and finished there as a pricing analyst. But it was cool because I actually started Get Up and Go Kayaking while I was working at that job. And so it was like an 8 to 5. And then I randomly came across this need for my type of product, clear kayaks, in the marketplace, specifically in Central Florida. One day, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, her and I went to a state park here in Florida, and there was like a state park worker standing at the front gate, literally just like waving his finger around, saying like, "Turn around, you can't come in. We're too busy. We've sold out of all of our parking spots." And we had drove like, I don't know, an hour and a half to get there, and we were all excited to just go in the springs in the summertime, cool off, either go tubing or kayaking or canoeing or something. And instead, we got turned around, and same with like this long line of cars. Everyone had driven far to get there. Everyone's getting turned around, and there's nothing else to do in the area. So we all pull over, and like I'm on my phone looking for things to do. The car next to us was on like a old school map looking for things to do, which I thought was funny. And so there was nothing to do in the area. So we ended up driving all the way back home because we weren't going to wait around to hopefully try to get back into the park like 5 hours later. So on the drive home, I like call some of the other springs that are around Florida, and it was the same answer for all of them. Like, hey, we've been sold out and at capacity since before we even opened. There's a line of cars that are waiting to get in. So I knew there was like an overwhelming amount of demand for something. I didn't really know what that something was at the time. But as I did research over the next 2 weeks, I realized that like a lot of these kayak companies that were around, especially like Orlando, Central Florida at the time, had these website pages that looked like MySpace pages. Like
Mm.
they're very weirdly, like the font is weird on them and the colors are weird and like photos are blurry and there was no like digital presence of what was already out there. And then I would go a step further and like look at their social media, and it was kind of the same thing, like blurry photos of a crab. I'm like, that's not gonna sell your experience. So I realized that like I had my marketing degree, I had learned how to kind of do marketing through my 10 years of trying to market myself in the music world, and figured that I could at least hopefully do that a little bit better than what I had seen out there. Not only that, but like no one was using clear kayaks at all. I was the first to introduce clear kayaks in a tour format in all of Florida, if not all of the US. I couldn't find anyone that was doing tours in clear kayaks. We have crystal clear spring water in Central Florida, so I'm like, this is perfect for what I'm trying to do. And we also have bioluminescence on the east coast of Florida, and so I'm like, man, if you could see the bio like right under the kayak, I feel like that could be a cool experience. And so literally the day that I got turned around from that park, 2 weeks later, I did a business plan and, completed that business plan. I went to the bank and took out a $12,000 loan to start Get Up and Go kayaking 2 weeks after that happened. So got the loan, went and purchased, 6 kayaks, went and got an enclosed trailer that I would tow behind my little Ford Fusion and get, like, 3 miles to the gallon on gas, and literally just started like that quickly. It was really fast, and, after my full-time job, 8 to 5, I would go give bioluminescent tours at, like, 9 PM, 11 PM, 1 AM, and get done at, like, 3 AM, drive an hour and 15 minutes back to my apartment, wash off my kayaks in my apartment's car wash at, like, 4 AM. I was that weird guy doing weird things that was me, and and then I would go to work at 8 AM the next morning at the golf
Jeez.
channel. So I did that for about a year and a half, almost 2 years of doing that, and we finally got to the point where, I was comfortable enough with the amount of business that we had that I could quit the full-time job. So I did that, and thankfully, right when I quit, we started going viral on the internet. This was
Mhm.
back in 2017, and I was able to hire a tour guide, and then we just had a huge amount of people, like, asking, "Do you operate here? Do you operate there? Do you operate over there?" Like, they were asking me about all these places in Florida, and we only, had tours in 2 locations. So that was when I really thought about, "How do I scale this thing?" And then that next year is when I spent all of the savings that I had and, turned the business into a franchise, and that
Mm.
was about 5 years ago now. So I've been franchising for 5 years, and just to catch up to where we're at now, we're at 32 locations,
Wow.
and I still own the first 2 that I started with, but the other 30 are all franchise owned. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the last 8 years has done. But yeah, the origin is kind of funny, going from rapping to pricing analyst at the Golf Channel to starting a kayak business
Well,
and now a franchise.
you know what? I love it. I think it's really just kind of what I identified, as an outsider. I'm in the industry on the publishing side, so I have
Yeah.
Lawson, our travel guide company, but I'm not an operator. So my takeaway after talking to 12 operators and now 13 with you is that it's pure entrepreneurism. This is you got to be. It's a little bit of that startup mentality. It's wanting to be your own boss, make your own hours, kind of design your own lifestyle. And it's also comes a lot around passion, like you're probably not going to be successful if you hate kayaking,
Yeah.
which was pretty interesting. So people all have different ways of how they fall into it, how they get into it, whether they went like you and started from the ground up, or if they went on like Biz Bash Buy and found a franchise or found a existing tour and acquired it. But I think that was a pretty standard observation on my end. So I want to talk a little bit about before we go back to Arrival itself. I want to just dive into the marketing because you brought up some important ideas. So one is the idea of this clear kayak and how you started going viral in 2017. This is something that I noticed from a lot of the tours, is that you have this, what I would call product-led marketing fit for your channel, right? Like
Yeah.
a kayak is not special. I've been on plenty of kayaking tours. It was great. It was still nice to, get the digital passport stamp, and, post my video with my kids on Instagram. But specifically this idea of a clear kayak, you're not taking a clear kayak out for any reason other than to see what's under you, right? And there's this idea that the product itself and the tour itself really lends itself to creating a special piece of content that's going to be really great for your Instagram brag that you went on a cool trip and you got to see something really cool. But how do you, as the operator, tap into that trend of the fact that we're all running around the world wanting to collect these digital passport stamps for social media? Like, how does that work in your marketing funnel?
Yeah, there's a few different ways actually that we look at this. One, the important part is actually capturing the content itself and making sure that people do walk away with the video that is conducive for sharing in a way that they enjoy and will hopefully make the brand look good, right? And so for me, that's just like introducing that idea to our tour guides and training them on how important it is to actually take the videos or take the photos along the way. So for us, like it's really important to have two or three like known really good spots along the tour where it's like, all right, we're gonna stop at these spots and like specifically take videos or take photos, and we're gonna tell the group like, guys, this is the best spot. We wanna make sure we get the content that you want, whether it's photo, video, whatever. Um, and that just doing that alone and like consciously thinking about where those spots are and maybe the best take on what to do when you're at that spot. Is it a slow-mo video? Is it jumping in the water? Is it the kayak going over you as you're swimming under it and taking a video looking down through the like there's a lot of different ways to get the content once you figure out the spots. But it's been really important for us to actually like consciously make the effort to stop and get the content. I think like it's super important nowadays to give as much content as you can to every single guest that comes out. Just think about it, like they go home and post it on Facebook. In a year from now, Facebook is going to remind them of their memory that happened a year ago. 2 years from now, Facebook's going to do it again. 3 years from now, Facebook's going to. So like if we can get them to post on their end and not only drive some extra traffic our way by posting and hopefully tagging us and talking about us, but two, I think it's just like a constant reminder to them that like they had this really fun experience with us. And because we have all of these different locations, my hope is that they can come and now maybe revisit a different location or something like that. So we also we do have a loyalty program that kind of ties into all of this as well, and I think it's really important even for the tour operator that may only have one location. It's 25 times more expensive to obtain customers than it is to retain or upsell your current customers. So
Mm.
like if you can just get them to come back to your location, right? That cut the marketing cost in half for that one person. So I spend a lot of time like figuring that piece of it out. How do we encourage people to come back and explore and experience with us? All of 2023, I also had a promotion where if people came out and did our tour and then posted a reel and invited us as a collaborator on that reel, I would refund 100% of their tour back to them.
Wow.
So my hope is like, let's turn our customers into the content creators for us, and then we have this ongoing wheel, this ongoing stream of like incoming content that we don't have to go out and take the content. They'll do it for us. They'll edit the content, they'll post it, they'll share it, and we have a relatively high trafficked Instagram page ourselves. So like the hope is they want to be on the Instagram, right? Because we can show their video to more people and hopefully, help boost the views and the reach. But I mean, it's been a huge strategy of ours. We have just this year alone, and it's just the beginning of October, we have over 200 million organic views on socials alone. So it's a huge point of emphasis for us to like make sure that we're doing everything we can to get the content and encourage people to get the content when they come and adventure with us.
I love that. What is the percentage of folks that take you up on that offer, on the real offer, to basically collaborate and get a refund or a free trip, essentially?
Yeah, so last year, it was the percentage was really low. It was probably only like 15, maybe 20 people that did it out of like 50,000 people that visited us, right? So very low. Um, but we only like trialed it at one location out of the 30. So not 50,000 people visited that one location. So let's call it maybe 5,000 people visited that location, and only like 20 of them actually did that. I think that's probably my fault for not telling enough people about it or letting them know before they get out to the tour or something like that. But I want to try that again, or something similar to it, because I do think it's a really interesting way to get this user generated content that everyone wants nowadays, and it sells the experience. Like videos are the best way that you can sell any experience in my mind, digitally at least.
Yeah, no, I love that. And were any of those 15 to 20 people who participated, were any of them influencers? And I use that as like a light word. Like, you and I might be considered influencers because we do the podcast thing, but
Yeah.
there's a spectrum of people who are nano, micro, or full-blown influencers. And the big distinguisher for me is like, can they create something that looks
Yeah.
and sounds good?
Yeah. So typically, we do host a lot of influencers, and I kind of consider that completely separate from this kind of real
The
promotion that we
UGC.
had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've probably also hosted like 50 or so, probably even more than that last year, 50 influencers that came out, did the tours. Usually we'll host them for free, depending on who they are or the type of content that they put out. It's funny because we used to really care about like how many followers do they have? What's their reach to look like? And now I'm like, do they create a good video? Yes or no? If yes, like come on out for free. If you can put together like really good engaging content, I feel like that's way more important than someone that has a lot of followers nowadays. So it's kind of like changed over the last 2 years because of just the interest, algorithm that's happening now on the TikTokification of all of social media.
Yeah, we've moved away from a follower-based economy to an algorithm-based economy.
Yeah.
So as long as the video is great, it's all about at bats on your channel and using the collab tool.
Yep.
And if the video is good, it has a chance. So, and you already are starting from the point of like, this is an interesting environment that has that potential as well because of how and where you're shooting. So, I have another question on just the process. So you've obviously trained your tour guides and your franchise partners that figuring out what the Instagram moment is on the tour is of high degree of importance, and most attractions are building that in, whether it's a hotel or an Airbnb or a theme park, etc.
Yep.
So they know that. What are they capturing on? Are they capturing on phones? Are they capturing on GoPros? Are they capturing on something else? Like what's the kit from a tech perspective on the film capture?
Yeah, right now it is the phone. We've played around with all sorts of different things in the past. when I started the business, I did it all on GoPro, and this was 8 years ago. So iPhone videos have come a long way in the last 8 years, and GoPro was like back then. GoPro videos looked better than iPhone videos, and now I would say the opposite is
Yeah.
true.
I have one right
Um,
here, one right there, and I never take it off the shelf.
Yep, I've got a couple, and same. Yeah, it's they. I just go out with this now.
Yeah.
So back when I first started, I took 50 photos or videos of every single guest that came out, and it was a lot of work to get it from the GoPro to the computer, and then I would edit some of the stuff, and then I would send it to the customer, and like that process alone at scale is really difficult. It takes a lot of time and effort, so it's so much easier now to take the photos on a phone and either text them or airdrop them right at the end of the tour, and that's it. That's all the work that needs to be done at the end of the tour, and you know that the lighting's always gonna be good. You now have the point 0.5, you've got the 5 times zoom, like, there's so many cool little things you can do in the phone to create unique angles and perspectives and stuff like that. But one cool thing that I've been experimenting with is those new, Meta Ray-Bans that record, just from your sunglasses, and
Wow.
yeah, and I think, like, I think we're going to do some really interesting things with them. One, it's a really cool perspective because, you now no longer have to hold your phone. You can just click the button and it'll record, and you can look around, and it's very, user friendly, especially for a tour guide that's like paddling, and they've got both hands on the paddle, and now they can paddle and get content at the same time, and it doesn't really slow down their rhythm. I think is
You,
cool, and
you've
they could be
just
talking.
I was gonna say you've just helped me figure out what my birthday present's gonna be this year.
Yeah, they're really freaking cool. I used them on a trip last month, and just to like try them out myself, and they're really freaking cool, and the quality is actually really good on them for what they are. And
So
I
good.
think that they're obviously only gonna get better, but, like, even the tour guide, like, talking to the group of people, I think can become a viral moment, and instead of the tour guide now needing to hold the phone and it being awkward, like, creates this barrier between the customer and the tour guide. They now just can click the button and continue their conversation. It doesn't feel like they're being recorded, like, it feels very natural. So what I want to do eventually is like uh, give our tour guides these glasses and let them create content while they're out on the tour with them, and then figure out an easy way to get that content from the Meta Facebook platform to the customer in an easy way. But I do think that's kind of like where somewhat of the future of content creation is going, at least for my world and kayaking and being so active with your hands when you're paddling. It really helps with that piece of it.
Yeah, that's smart. I'm thinking about it from the podcast perspective when I'm in the field.
Oh, that
Um,
could be cool. Yeah.
yeah. So, Mike, could you go live through the Meta platforms and just be live streaming the whole time too?
That's a good question. I haven't figured that functionality out yet. I've only taken videos on it, but that could be really interesting. And it's funny, like it's funny that you say that too, because that's a whole nother world that we've really been thinking about a strategy for, is just the live side of all of these platforms. Like going live on TikTok makes your organic views go up and your
Oh,
organic reach go up,
yeah.
and so in my head, I'm like, there's got to be a way we can just set up. I'll give the tour guides a phone that is only connected to like our social platforms, and they can just go live and then like connect it to their kayak for the entire tour. They don't even really need to interact with the people that are on the live. I just think it would be fun for people to hop in and see what a tour's like, and also hear like the tour guides' personalities, and like get a piece of like what is it actually like. And I think it would be really fun to have a cool live strategy. And I haven't really seen that done much in the tourism world specifically. Like, I never really see any tourism brands going live on social media. And if they are, it's kind of like in this setting that you and I are in right now. It's
Yeah.
not like while they're out on a tour.
Yeah. No,
It
I
would be
love
fun.
it. I mean, I'm live right now. across 6 platforms. And I think that's the biggest fear for me when I'm in the field is like, how do you convert from like a very controlled studio experience where I can kind of control the elements and I feel comfortable going live versus, at a trade show where I don't know who's going to pop in and if the production value is going to be, good or not. But I think there's something there. I think is more for you than me probably. But yeah, check out this app that we're using today. It's called Restream. Cool. And I know it has a mobile app version. So I think that could be a solve for you.
Yeah.
So
I think it's fun if there's other stuff happening though. Like I think it could be cool if there's people popping in and like the whole reason I do the podcast in a kayak is literally because Gary Vee told me to do a podcast in a kayak. And he's like, dude, it is fun when there's like other shit going on around you and like people can see movement and a spider jumps in the kayak. Like how does your guest react to that? Like, that kind of thing is what creates some fun. So like even if people are popping in and out of like these live things of when you're at an event, I feel like that's only going to add to it. I don't think it's going to take away from it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm going to start drilling. I think the meta glasses might be the solve. We'll have to see. So I want to talk a little bit more on the capture side. So you've got phones, you've got the meta glasses. Do you guys have strong enough Wi-Fi to like upload videos to the cloud while you're out on the water?
Some of our locations do, some
Okay.
don't. So overall, I would say no. But those types of things, can happen afterwards. I don't think it needs to be 100% instant. I do think it's very helpful if you can get people the stuff like as they're still excited about it and right when it ended that you can share that memory with them. I love leaving people with giving them something instead of like them leaving and we're asking for a tip or asking for a review. I really like when people leave and the last thing that's happened is we've given them something. So I'd love to be able to do that right then. But if that can't happen, we still give people a sticker at the end of every tour, and as they collect those stickers, they unlock those loyalty program rewards that we have: free merch, free tours, and stuff like that. So I do think it's important to give them something at the end of it, so that they leave feeling like some extra value was there.
Yeah, no, I love that. What I'm trying to get to is the closest to what I would call like a surprise and delight moment. Which is so I use a platform called Lucy Hub, which is basically like Frame.io with editors on the back end. So if you and I were to have done our podcast at Arrival in San Diego, I would have shot a 10-minute interview with you. I would immediately have uploaded it to Lucy Hub. Then the minute it's uploaded, they're editing. And then when I get home that night, it's the finished day one video is already in my inbox. Oh, cool. I post that to LinkedIn and I tag you. And then when I see you the next day, you're like, bro, the interview's already up.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's very cool.
That could work for you, but it would only be relevant I think they could get videos back to you by the end of the tour, as long as you were shooting stuff at the beginning of the tour and uploading it. Yep. They would have finished videos.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so you brought up Gary Vee. You met Gary. Where'd you meet Gary?
Yeah, I've met him a couple times now in the last year, actually, which is fun. So I did a 4Ds program through the Sasha Group, which is one of Gary's companies.
Yeah.
Last September, so about a year ago now. And then that's kind of like a 1-day deep dive on your business. And Gary comes in for like an hour and a half, and there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us in the room, and we all get 15, 20 minutes of like asking him direct questions. So I did that about a year ago. And then they came out with this program called Vive. And they started pitching me on it back in March or April. And it was the first of its kind. They've never done this before, so there was no reference point of other people that have done it. And it's a 120-day high performance accelerator program from Gary. And it's ran by Andrea and James. Andrea is like Gary's old CMO. James has helped Gary expand into a whole lot of different offices and stuff like that. So two highly respectable people in Gary's circle. They've both worked for him for 10 years. And they pitched me on it, and weekly we had a deep dive kind of with a different expert in a different industry. So one week we had a sleep expert, one week we had an AI expert, one week we had an organizational expert, a negotiations expert. We had Damon John from Shark Tank came on one week.
What?
Yeah, it was fun. So each week we had a Zoom call with these people, and there was 10 of us in this program, four kind of C-suite level executives, and then six kind of entrepreneurs like myself. It was really cool for me because I was kind of like the lowest grossing out of everyone and the youngest at the same time. So I got to really learn from people that are a little further along career wise, but also life wise, life experience wise. And there was a real like wellness element of all of it too, which I thought was pretty cool and something that I don't think about enough as an entrepreneur that literally like lives in this space and doesn't really get to talk to people about it that often. And then we also had an executive coach, which was really cool. So I had like 12 1-hour sessions with this lady, Dr. Natasha, which was super helpful. And then at the end of it, we did well. At the beginning of it, we all met up in New York at the offices and spent like 2 days and several hours with Gary. Amongst those 2 days, it started at like his apartment building, and we all did lunch together. And like his fiance cooked us food for lunch, and like it was really cool. And then we closed the bell at NASDAQ too with Gary when he released his recent book. So like got to do that whole thing, which was incredible.
So good.
And then at VCon, they had a couple little VIP things for us. So like I was in a networking setting with like the head of marketing at Amazon, the head of
Oh
marketing
man,
at Meta.
I missed you. The show was there too. We interviewed like 3 or 4 people while we were out there.
Yeah, I saw your interview with Andrew
Yeah,
and
I think I'm trying to remember. Andrew is it's probably the guy from Hawk. Or is that who you're thinking of?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
good dude.
And so did that. They had like a creator party that we went to, and I saw like all these like influencers that I just thought it was kind of funny going to. But then at the end of it, we did this retreat at Chip Conley's retreat called Modern Elder Academy, and he's like a mentor of Brian Chesky from Airbnb, and he worked for Airbnb for several years and really helped scale Airbnb. So spending time with him for a few days was incredible, and it was just this like retreat that really allowed all of us to open up to each other and dig a little bit deeper than we typically would as entrepreneurs. And it was really, really cool. I also had like a private like 15 minutes with Gary too, which was really fun. Just asking him questions, and we were all kind of like hand selected for this program too. So he already knew me from the 4Ds, and it was really, really cool. But so it was 120 days, and it just ended like 3 weeks ago. So I'm still like decompressing and debriefing, and like I have so many notes and just like things to do. And the networking was incredible, though. The other 10 people that were a part of this program are all like phenomenal people. It's like the CMO of Michaels was one of the 10.
Wow.
Lady who built this pest control company to like 250 million a year was one of them. Like these just incredible entrepreneurs that like it's really cool to be around and learn from. And as you know, probably like people in Gary's environment are just so giving and willing to talk, and like it was so cool. So I got to spend a lot of time with his head paid of media, JMO. Like we went through my Facebook ads, and it's like, when would you ever get to do that with Gary's head paid of media? And really, really good opportunity. It cost a lot of money, but it was a really, really good opportunity. And I feel like I definitely got my value out of it. So it was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, look, at the end of the day, as a business owner, you're making an investment in your business, right?
Yeah.
Like, whether it's Tony Robbins, I mean, I think Gary is like way more practical. Like Tony's great too, but
Yep.
Gary, you get the practicality of being an operator and a marketer and entrepreneur with like just enough of the feel good stuff to like be stoked as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
But everything is like practicality and value. I haven't gone as deep in his ecosystem, it sounds like, as you have. Been a fan of the books, met him at South by Southwest years ago. Have known him going back to Wine Library TV because I was running a wine publisher back then called Young Winos in my 20s. And then flash forward, yeah, the podcast got certified as official media for VCon this year. So that was
That's
definitely
so
like,
cool.
yeah, it was cool. It was like kind of a groundswell moment for me for sure. So
Yeah.
I love it. So do you invest in a lot of professional development, or has Gary like been the main one you've gone deep with?
Yeah, that is actually like my pretty much the only time I have is literally last year, the 4Ds, and then this year.
Love it.
And to be honest, it was a $50,000 investment this
Yeah,
year to do this
that's right.
120-day program,
Yeah.
and I was like half shitting my pants and half like super excited, because one, like it was the first class, so like we didn't know what was going to really happen. But I also knew that like it's Gary, he's not going to under deliver on something. And so I trusted that, and, after a couple conversations with my wife about like, "Hey, should I spend this money on this?" And after some thoughtful conversations, like, I was like, "Yeah, like, now is the time where I'm in the middle of scaling my business. I can learn from these incredible people, not only the people in the program, but the 2 people running the program. I can learn from them. They're willing to, like, open their Rolodex and introduce me to a whole lot of different people, and, like, right off the bat, they sent out, an email to me and a guy that opened 100 plus Subway restaurants in Germany, and they're like, "Hey, you 2 should talk." And then we've now since had, like, 10 plus conversations. That he's flown to Florida and, like, checked out the business, and there could be, something happening with that. Earlier today, I talked to a guy who's like the VP of development for BurgerFi, a big burger
Yeah, no.
franchise.
Yep.
Yep. And so talked to him earlier today because of this the contacts there. And so I feel like, if you're going to invest money, you should definitely invest in yourself if you believe in what you're doing, and I have a huge belief in what I'm doing and know the direction of where it's all headed. And I want to be in rooms where I feel like the dumbest person in the room, because that's really when you can learn the most. And I definitely was in some of those settings when I was part of the program. So I was excited to just sit there quietly and, like, take in, what's going on. It was fun.
I love it. Well,
Mhm.
this is coming from a guy who spent 35 grand to go an event for 2 days. So I'm in the same
Yep.
ballpark. Like I'm all about investing the right money with the right people if it means I'm going to be in the room with interesting folks that are going to help me level my game up. And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Gary and his brand. And I think he does that, like you said, for people in spades. So great
Yeah.
endorsement. All right, let's jump into Arrival. So bummed that we didn't connect because you seem like an
Um,
awesome dude, and I think we would have had a lot of fun. But maybe next year in DC. But tell me about what was your big takeaway from this year's Arrival show?
yeah, it's funny. I've been to maybe 5 or 6 different arrivals now, and this was the one that I went to the least amount of programming, but talked to the most amount of other operators,
Hmm.
which I found highly, highly useful. Like, I had a lot of meaningful conversations, and from those conversations, you just learn about how people are doing things in their own vertical. Or, I'm talking to, like, a food tour lady. Her name was Liz. We sat across from each other at a dinner one night. I didn't know who she was before the dinner, and just learning, like, what does she do differently than I do as a kayak tour guy? And you meet like the guy that does sandwich tours in New York, and like I'm talking to him, and I'm just like, it's really cool getting all of this input and back and forth from different industries. So I really love that part of Arrival and being able to have those types of conversations. But I think like a couple big themes that I took away from some of the keynotes and just some of those conversations too is like search I think is really really important. Like Google search is going to become a little less relevant over time. It's still kind of the top dog, I think, in our industry, but, like, people are finally realizing that TikTok search is a thing, that YouTube
It's
Shorts search is a thing, like
yeah, TikTok is the number one search engine for Gen Z and Gen Alpha now. So they go to TikTok first before they go to Google. So it's just a matter of
it's
aging up.
crazy. It's
Mhm.
crazy, and TikTok just released, like, a searchability, ad that you can do in its platform now too, so you can pay for search terms within TikTok, which I think is going to be huge, especially in the tourism and travel industry, but I think just in general, like, people are now realizing you need to be everywhere. You can't just be one place and expecting to grow your business. That doesn't mean like you need to have multi locations. I'm saying digitally, you need to be everywhere. Like you need to have an Instagram presence. You need to have a Facebook presence. You need to have YouTube presence. You need to have TikTok. You need to like you've got to have all of these things, and you need to be doing them all in a way that like makes sense for your business. I think a lot of people do all of these things, but they don't really know why, or they don't really know what to post, or they're doing it because they've heard they should do it, you know? And when you really ask them like what their strategy is or why they're doing it or what metrics they're looking at, you start realizing that like they don't fully understand themselves why they're even doing it. And so I think search is just like for me, that was kind of a big thing that I took away from the whole thing. Content creation, marketing, I think is just always going to be huge, and especially now with the interest graph the way that it is on all platforms, like it's only going to become more and more relevant for our industry. And then AI. I mean, I feel like every conference nowadays is like half of it is about AI, and only like a quarter of that is like actual useful AI stuff that you can deploy and put into your business. But I think it's important to at least like be thinking about it, talking about it, because it does make you consider different ways that you can use AI in your business. But actually, one thing I took away from Gary back at the 4D session a year ago was we were all talking about AI, and he's like, you know what? I'm using AI as a thought partner, someone that I can just put my thoughts into and I'll get a reply and we can have this back and forth, and it's just going to spit out information and it's going to like help me think. And so
Mm,
I think that like that's a really interesting way to use AI that not enough people are thinking about. They're just thinking like, how can it take this task away from my daily workload, right? Or how can it come up with 10 captions for me? But, like, if you interact with it and use it as, like, a thinking partner, you can really uncover some really good ideas and help you identify cohorts that you should be marketing to and ways that you can market to them, and, like, there's a whole lot that you can do with it if you're just thinking about it a little differently, and so I find that those conversations about AI are really important when it's just a different perspective on AI. Even if I don't get much out of the presentation, just having someone else's perspective on how they use AI, I think is a really fun way to have a takeaway from that. But search and AI were my two kind of big takeaways from this year's arrival.
yeah, I love that. Did you sit in on Will I Am's demo of his new
Yeah.
AI at
Yep.
VCon? I think
Yeah,
that
that was cool.
really, yeah, it really leans into what you're talking about, which is you got to treat AI as a person. You know, you
Yep.
almost like talk to it like you would talk to a friend, talk to it like you would talk to a colleague. And that's how you get like the best answers back. I really love it. I really love it as a bullshit task eliminator. And what I mean by that is, you know, I remember recently I met with somebody and they're like, hey, can you do like, it was a prospect. And they're like, hey, can you do like a 1 year sales plan for me? And like, we hadn't even engaged yet. And I was like, sure, Chat GBT, can you give me a 1 year sales plan for a company that looks like this? Literally spit it out. I put 5 minutes of polish on it and I landed the biggest contract that I've got all year. So, and the reality is like that was the type of thing where it's like, I don't want to say no completely because I don't, you know, because then this thing might go away. but I also don't want to do real work because we haven't engaged, like we haven't,
Yeah.
created terms or like created a payment structure, and I don't want to give away things for free. And so anytime somebody asks me something that I feel like is kind of like a BS task, I just give it to AI.
Yeah. That's
So
that's the way to do it. If you can save time, that's the most valuable tool, you know?
yeah, 100%. All right, good stuff. Well, yeah, arrival show, awesome time, and pumped to hopefully get to meet you in DC next year as well.
Yep.
So let's get into the marketing with the last 15 minutes that we have. We've discussed a lot of stuff, but you're definitely on the far end of the spectrum and someone who I think really gets it. There's no reason why you've been very successful at this. Some based on your background. I think music marketers are extremely great because they're scrappy. They've had to basically try and build things with no money or no budget. So the golf industry isn't much better. So you strike me as someone, with your entrepreneurial roots, as someone who's had to roll up their sleeves and like get dirty and get stuff done. So we kicked off this podcast talking about the fact that you've got 3 podcasts. We turned on the camera at your studio. You're giving me podcast studio FOMO, way better than my setup. Definitely have me thinking about, stepping up my game on the studio space. But, whether it's you working with your guides in the field to create those shareable moments, working with influencers, working with your customers for great UGC, for the collaboration, always understanding that, media is more powerful than a single, tour ticket, and or God forbid companies that actually want to charge their customers for videos and photos versus turning them into marketing. And you've got 3 different shows, so you're doing the earned media side from your perspective as well, running your portion of the thought leadership. So I guess my first question is, what's the number one channel that's working for you guys?
Yeah. So top thing that drives our business right now is just organic search. It's about 50% of our entire revenue. And this year we'll do north of $5 million for the year. So, that's driving probably close to 3 million of that. And it's just so like that's the most important channel. For the next, I think, 2 that we really focus on are obviously the content side of things and the paid media strategy. It's again one of those things in our industry that um, people don't understand enough, I think, and they're very quick to say, "Hey, you come and do it for me." I think to your point, like I am scrappy in the sense that like, no, let me learn how to do this and figure out what works, what doesn't work. I'm okay with like losing a little bit of money to figure out what does work, or even just to figure out what doesn't work so I can get closer to what does. So those are like our top 3 is going to be organic, and then paid socials and paid search, and then the social media, just organic socials. Those are kind of like our top, and then we have like a whole little segment of like third party affiliate bookings, from TripAdvisor, Viator, Airbnb, some of those kind of like third party online travel agencies we use as well.
Got it. So the OTA is a channel for you.
Yep.
Okay. For organic search, is that blog post ranking mainly?
So it's a few different things. Yes, to blog posts, we have a few that rank really high. However, they don't necessarily convert really high.
Mm,
I would say, I don't want to say it's easy to rank high on a blog post, but it's not that hard. If you can find a topic that's not super covered and you have a lot of traffic to your website already, and you can just load it with keywords, right? Like, you over time that will continue to rank higher and higher. So we try to really focus those blog posts on things that will also be actionable within our business and not just doing a blog post to do a blog post. So like prime example here is we did a blog post maybe 4 years ago that's like best places to see manatees in Florida, and it ranks extremely high on Google. And there's good intent behind it because not only are these the best places to see them, but also we include like here's the best way to see them, and it's voila, it's in our it's in our clear kayaks, right? So um, blog posts are super important, but over time, like I've figured out that you can't just have a product page that only talks about your tour. It also needs to talk about the destination. It also needs to talk about why. It also should have reviews and social proof, right? And we have 35,000 5-star reviews. So, like, I need to highlight that as many times as I can on our website. But I think it's really important to have that like a section about like where the tour is located, the destination, the things you're going to see, because those are where a lot of the keywords come from. It's not just like about the tour. And I find that like a lot of operators' pages that I go on and see just in my daily as I'm browsing the internet is just a product page of like, here's what you're gonna get on our tour, and that's it. You know, it
Mm.
doesn't really sell you on the destination. It doesn't really sell you on the things you're gonna see along the tour. It just tells you about the tour and what you're gonna get out of it. So I,
Yeah.
I I think that's like a big piece of the organic search that kind of people forget about. But you know, over time, the good thing is we have a lot of pages on our site too. There's 32 locations, you know, so each page has its own content, keywords, visual, like everything is super visual friendly and just worded with a bunch of keywords. So the bigger that your website page gets, I feel like Google kind of understands that, oh wow, this website has a lot of really good content for people searching for me, kayaking specifically, but for adventure or things to do near Orlando that aren't the theme park. Like we make sure to throw those types of phrases on the website so that when people are searching, will be shown.
That's awesome. So, well, I want to ask two follow-ups to that. One is, how do you work with your franchise owners? Are you kind of like a franchise board? Do portions of their fees yearly go into like a pool that, and then you deploy marketing for everybody? Or is it a co-op where they have to spend money and then you'll spend money to like match it? Like, how do you structure your franchise partners on who owns what from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question and not one that people think to to ask too often. So the franchisee is supposed to be spending at least 8% of their revenue on paid marketing. Um, that could be like printing rack cards and bringing them to hotels. That could be Google ads. That could be social ads. Like it can go in different ways. Um, and then
Anything
on
that's
top,
not, is it like anything that's not headcount?
yeah, essentially it's just any paid. I just call it any paid marketing is what that 8% can go towards. They're supposed to also like get approval before they randomly go spend money on like a hey, I bought a I don't know, a billboard or something, you know, and like there goes their entire budget or something. Um, you know, I'm like, hey, we can do digital billboards like just
Run
with
it,
Google ads
run
now,
it
you
by
know.
me first. I know some things.
Yeah, yeah. So that's step one. Step two is monthly, they do owe 2% of their revenue that goes into a marketing fund for the entire business as a whole that then I can use to deploy for unique different things. Usually that fund goes towards paid search on a much larger scale than like what any one location is doing. And it's cool because every month we track that and see like who got money from that. And it's very widespread across the 32 locations. Like it gets deployed pretty evenly across. There's some locations that are always crushing it that like it gets a good amount to, but it's very widespread, which is fun. But also like I wanted to create a mascot for our business. I think it's something that's missing in the tourism space specifically too is not many tour companies have like this mascot that they actually use and like whatever. So I put some funds towards creating a mascot. We haven't completed it yet, but it should be done here in the next like 2 weeks. And I'm really excited to use that mascot in unique ways that people aren't in our industry. I also like hired a community manager that's in charge of our socials and anything kind of like customer facing. We have a private Facebook group, we have a texting community. Like that fund goes towards all of those things. So it's really cool when you have 30 locations contributing that 2%, you can really do some pretty interesting things with it. Um, so it's a little bit of a co-op. They do their own, we help. The good thing is like I've really wanted to get my feet as wet as I could with marketing stuff, paid marketing, and I see it from 32 locations. So if I see one location performing really well, I can take what they're doing well and apply to the other 30, right? Or vice versa. If I see one is just like not working, their Google ads aren't converting, I can be like, okay, whatever we did here, we can't do to, to anyone in the future, or we have to make sure that uh, we're taking the things off of this account and doing what does work. And so it's fun to be able to have that many locations to try one thing and see if it works, and then apply across the board and be able to understand it too at the same time.
Yeah, 10% of revenue, and it's not like you're taking that as just like a fee. You're just asking your partners to invest 10% across their business and the business as a whole. That
Yeah.
feels like a pretty good percentage of top line for marketing. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, no, I'm deeply familiar in the franchise marketing world, more from like generally, like you mentioned, automotive and the restaurant industry. So always curious to see how an individual franchisor kind of breaks things down. So I want to do a follow up on the SEO topic, since that's your number one channel. So you mentioned this manatee blog post that was kind of crushing, and it was a great idea. Is that manatee subject matter generated from art or science? So do you find out that manatees are trending like as like a more broader topic in Florida or in social, and then you decide to try and infiltrate that search term, or is that being surfaced through an insight that's based on gut feeling or data?
Yeah. That one was, specifically gut feeling. A couple reasons, and I guess some of this is data related too, but a lot of our customer conversations that are happening in the wintertime in Florida are, "Will we see manatees? Are there manatees there? Where can I go to see manatees? Which of your locations have manatees?" And so I'm like, "Let me just create a blog that answers all of these questions," right? And like, "Here's the blog. Here's where you can go see the manatees." Like, I think that part of it is kind of the art side of it, like, just understanding that a lot of people are asking about it and curious about it. Um, I think the data side of it is we do have keywords that are like manatees in Florida or like manatee tours in blank, Crystal River, or Weeki Wachee, or Tampa, or whatever. And we get to you get to see like how active that keyword is, how many clicks like are on that, and those like in the wintertime are always like the top for those locations. So I think it was like a little bit of both. Sometimes it's a gut feeling like I think a lot of people are interested in this thing. Let me create a blog post around it. And then other times it's like, oh wow, this one term or this one phrase is like not something we've ever created content around. Like we should probably create a blog post, And usually that will surface in just like our GA4, our Google Analytics, or I have an account, a subscription with I think I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Ahrefs, and
Mm.
it's kind of like a SEMrush website or something like that um, where you can like uncover what keywords people are using to get to your website and stuff like that. And we'll play around with that to see where we should maybe be creating some content or thinking about it at least.
I love it. Well, hey, before we get into outros, I want to ask you about your podcasting strategy, because I have a podcasting strategy. You have a podcasting strategy. My podcast selfishly is so I can get smart guys like you on and learn from them. And when I'm out in the field, people want to meet with me because I'm interviewing them versus, trying to sell them something. Right. So
Yeah.
it's elevating my personal brand. It's giving me more opportunities at these trade shows to meet with more people and be more relevant. but how do you leverage podcasting as a strategy for a more what I would consider B2C business where you're trying to reach individuals? And can you tell me about how that podcast strategy has played out for you? Has it been successful in low funnel user acquisition or whatever you intended to have it do in your content funnel?
Yeah, I think a small portion of it is the B2C for me. I think the larger portion is actually B2B,
Mm.
and I think some of it feels B2C, which is good, and that's kind of how I want it to feel. Like, my Let's Yak podcast where we go out on a kayak and I interview someone and we go on a waterway that we have a location at, and we get to see things that are on our at that location, and we talk a little bit about the location, but it's mostly just about the guest that's with me, and we have a back and forth. Um, I do think there's going to be a small segment of people that come and do that tour because they saw that podcast and we posted on our corporate social media channels and whatever. I do think some people will come and see that, but I think the cooler thing is it almost shows the lifestyle of a franchisee, and that this could be you in the kayak, and this could be where you work every day. And so,
So good.
right? And so I think what's gonna happen is that's gonna be more of a B2B channel over time. It's still new, so I'm still, like, playing with it and figuring it out, but, I do think that's gonna be a really good funnel for showing people that, like, this could be what you do on a daily basis. Um, there's 2 other podcasts. One is Get Up and Scale with Kai Capro, who's also a franchisor in the tourism industry, and him and I do similar to what we're doing now. We bring on other guests and we interview them, or me and him just have a conversation about franchising or scaling or marketing or whatever it may be. That one is a really good way, to your point, of like getting in front of people that maybe would have never had the conversation with us, or someone we want to create a relationship with, or someone we find interesting that we want to have on the podcast. And then the Building a Buzz podcast, which is a play on my last name, is kind of fun for me to just take people kind of behind the scenes of my own journey and what's happened, and some milestones when I hit them, or sometimes, like, even my career doing music before this, I have a lot of connections still in the music world. So, like, sometimes I'll bring on just a random guest that you wouldn't think that would be, that I would be associated with, and we'll have a conversation. So, like, a recent episode, I had brought on like a Super Bowl champion lineman from the Chiefs, who I just happened to become friends with, like, four probably 4 or 5 years ago, after doing a talk at UCF's football facilities, and just randomness that has happened. That kind of is where where the randomness goes, is to that podcast.
So good.
It's more of like fun for me. Like, I love having these types of conversations, and I highly acknowledge that, like, brand is what is going to win in the long term, and I think this is like the way to build brand. Um, I think it has been the way to build brand over the last 5 years, and I think it will, like, continue to be that. I think people wanna connect with the founder, the CEO more than ever nowadays. People will buy things because they've seen the CEO or someone that works for the business, like, say something online, and, like, now you're gonna buy that product or whatever it is. And so I think, like, this is just a really good way to do all of those things in one place, and then hopefully connect people too. Like, we've had on guests before where I'm like, oh, this person should go talk to that other guest that I've had on before, and, like, you make these little cool connections between people that I think are really meaningful and impactful, and you just never know what's going to happen when you start a podcast and where it's going to go, and I think that's kind of like the fun of it, right? Is the outcome is something you don't know until years down the road.
Yeah, totally, man. I didn't even plan to be at Arrival until Monday morning at 9 a.m. So,
Holy crap!
so yeah, it was a great time, and stoked to have met so many awesome entrepreneurs like yourself that are out there living their best lives, doing their thing on the river instead of stuck in some office or some podcast studio. So,
Don't get me wrong, okay, I'm in here like 90% of the time, but, that other 10% is really, really fun, and the whole first 2 years I was on the water, so, I do miss it. I do a VIP tour at our bioluminescent location where I'm the tour guide, and it's like a long extended experience, and, I bring my camera out and I film it for them, and, like, it scratches so many itches for me at the same time. Like, I get to film, which I love. I get to guide a tour, which I love. I get to meet our guests, which I love. I get to go do bioluminescence. Like, it does all of these things in one. So, like, and it's a really high price point too. It's like $2,000 for a 3-hour tour for one person, and I had like 4 people book it last summer, which was really, really cool. But it's just this like I still love doing that and wish I could get out more. But at the same time, like I now am the franchisor of a 30 plus location business, so I have to I feel really, really obligated to help my franchisees grow their business and help the entire business grow. So I do spend a lot of time in here.
yeah, well, look, you have a high ticket item, so you can make it worth your time and go do the thing you love.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very cool. Well, hey, Justin, super pleasure getting to know you a little bit today.
Likewise.
I'll look forward to meeting you next year at Arrival in person in DC, or maybe even before that. Love to. Last time I went kayaking was in St. Augustine, so just saying.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
well, awesome, man. Well, hey, anywhere you want to point the audience on where they can either learn more about the tours and find one in their destination city in which they might be vacationing, and or how can they find you and connect with you professionally if they want to chat?
Yeah. The perfect spot is just getupandgokayaking.com is where everything kayak related will be, or same thing on socials, just at Get Up and Go Kayaking. Um, Professionally, LinkedIn is a really good place. I spend a lot of time there. So just my first and last name, Justin Buzzi. Not so professionally, if you want to see my travels and my random music and my random videos, just come to my personal Instagram, which is J_Buzzi Buzzi. And I post a lot of kayaking stuff there too, but I do post like a lot of my personal travels and whatnot on there. But anywhere is fine. Like I'll read it. I'll see it wherever someone wants to chat. I'd love to talk more about kayaking or business or anything. Honestly, like if anything was of interest on this episode, would love to chat more about it for sure.
Love it. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
thank
for
you.
all of you following along at home, wherever you're watching or listening, don't forget to subscribe or follow the show. That's how you'll be able to tune into future episodes. If you give us a review, that's how we find a broader audience more organically. And more importantly, if you know someone out there in your professional world that would benefit from the conversation that I had with Justin today, maybe some corporate slave who's ready to get out there and franchise a sick kayak business and get out of the 9 to 5, share this episode with them. And don't forget to come back next week. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
See you.